I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So, hi everyone. Welcome to the Friends of Camunda podcast. We haven't officially decided on a name there, but we're going to get there. We'd love to hear suggestions on what we should be when we grow up. My name is Max Young. I am a Camunda champion and the CEO of Capital BPM. I'm just going to hand this off. Maria, would you be kind enough to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Max. I'm Maria Alish. I work at ABA Group. I work in as a service product manager at ABA Group, focusing on process automation, product strategy, and customer experience. I also Camunda champion, and working with Camunda, I can do anything starting from creating process, analyzing the results, and writing some piece of code. And I love bringing new ideas to life and showing our customers not just how Camunda works, but why it matters.
Awesome.
So, over to you, Fabian.
Hello, I'm Fabian Stach from Illume. Um, I'm a Camunda champion as well, and I'm working more with the technical side of Camunda. So I'm implementing business processes or working on the architecture and the business to automate the processes, etc. Yeah, this is my main business. And I forward to Thomas.
So good morning, Max. Hi, everybody else. So I'm Thomas. I'm also, by coincidence, Camunda champion. I'm also CEO of company Astomicon. I work mostly for banking customers, and we do many things, including process automation, custom software development, etc., etc. And I'm here because of the community. I like the people around Camunda, and we will come into that, I guess.
Cool. You have to tag somebody.
Yes, Gerard, Gerard, not sure how to exactly pronounce your name, so please apologize. I guess it's Gerard. Is it?
You're on mute.
Yeah, I was mute. Yes, my name is Gerard Lapiemo, and I'm based in Belgium, also a Camunda champion. So passionate about teaching and that kind of thing. So creating content online about Camunda, business processes, and that kind of things. And I'm working as an independent consultant, so a freelance. So yeah.
You have to tag someone now, Gerard.
Yeah.
I think Fabian and Niall are
No,
left.
Fabian's good. I think
Mm.
I'll take it from here. I'm the easy answer for you, Jared. So yeah, so I'm the odd one out. I am not a Camunda champion. I'm Niall Dehan. Internally in Camunda, I'm known as the first user of all of the features that the dev team produces. I'm usually the canary in the coal mine for all the things we build. And I have a very fun job of usually trying to build examples and teach folks how to use the stuff we build. And most recently, quite excitingly, and hopefully I get to talk about this a little bit actually, is I've been released into the wild a bit to work with customers on building POCs that implement our new agentic orchestration tooling ahead of the 8.8 release. So I've been building a lot of different POCs that implement this, some really fun use cases. And more importantly, from my perspective, we've gotten some really good feedback that will then be sent back to the dev team to hopefully then to iron out the various UX issues with the product now that's currently in alpha and will be released in October 14th. So yeah, that's what I do.
Okay, so let's actually jump right into that. So Niall, tell me a little bit about why customers who have not been exposed to agentic orchestration should be thinking about it versus using more traditional expert systems like DMNs and stuff in order to like consolidate flows and determine where things should go. Like, what is what is the opportunity that they're missing if they don't engage?
Yeah. So I'm going to tackle this from two different angles quickly, and I really am interested in other people's opinion on this because this is what I find. The first is that there is no shortage of people who want to use AI every chance they get for whatever reason they get. So actually, I'm going to turn that question on its head a bit. There is a massive risk of actually using AI in the wrong place and for the wrong reason. And now Camunda fundamentally works by helping folks build deterministic predictable processes, right? Which is the opposite of what AI does. So, and I found, like when I start, a huge amount of people can solve exactly what they need with deterministic processes, right? So, and they should, because it's cheaper and easier and better. But you do get a position, especially because I'm working right now with existing customers of Camunda right until the release. And for them, they've got these big processes where they have these basically these gaps where things are really hard to model, right? And those particular things are, for whatever reason, difficult to model either because they're edge cases that therefore modeling them actually and are kind of complicated and take too long to model. So rather just throw it out of the process and give it to a human to fix, right? And the other option is that they tend to be before the real process starts, before the Camunda process starts, they do some kind of data validation or they do some kind of checking or something before they can begin stuff. Now, you asked what the big problem with not jumping on board is. Those things will be forever stuck as the slowest parts of your process if you don't actually look at implementing those. So a lot of what I've found we're doing is we are simplifying the work of people who spend a lot of their time just going through systems and validating data and emailing people and asking for stuff in order to get a real process started, right? So it's all about, like in most cases, preparing to get to that point where you can run a really long, predictable, deterministic process if it's a happy path. And if you don't do that, you risk having this incredibly messy beginning of a process that is actually blind. You can't judge it. People always ask, what is the lead time between the very beginning and the very end? If you have this big messy start before your process starts, you're not even counting it. And it really is part of the process. So yeah, I'm not sure how other folks have found it, but that's where I'm finding the big the value actually in starting to adopt it.
Gerald, what observations have you had in this space? What are you seeing out in the wild with your customers around the idea of agentic orchestration, where Camunda fits in, where things like LangChain, LangFlow fit in? Where are you seeing that customers are able to realize opportunities that they were not able to realize in the past? Surprise question. I didn't prepare you for that at all.
Yes, on my side, I didn't have the opportunity yet to implement agentic orchestration for a specific client. So for now, my last client, because for now I'm looking for my next opportunity. But my last client, it was like traditional, like modeling, modeling processes and try to orchestrate them. And in their roadmap, the idea was to inject AI in specific steps. So the first step was to just to have the end-to-end process in place before tackling the AI thing or the
Thomas, Fabian, Lewis, Maria, do you guys have any thing that you want to inject on this? I never run out of an opinion.
I do have one. The same as Gerard, I have never implemented any of those because it will be released in like in the fall, right? But I had a discussion with some of the stakeholders, and they told me, well, listen, Thomas, all the time we have been targeting 100% exact solutions. Why should we now, go down, target 99, 95, 90% exact solutions? For us, working in banking, we always need to target 100%. And they somehow, and we had this discussion with Niall already, that's why I'm a step ahead of them right now. But that wasn't clear to them, actually. And from what I remember from the discussion with Niall is that you don't completely switch to non-deterministic process, right? Using agents, you always start with deterministic. And in case there is a option that you cannot simply cover with deterministic process, then you involve the agents, right? And that wasn't maybe clear to everybody.
I can see the same tendency. Enterprises are under the pressure to leverage AI, not as silos, but within a mission critical operations. And however, AI without orchestration often becomes a black box, And today, most enterprises run experiments with AI, in a chatbot here, some classifiers there, etc. And Camunda lets us design transparent, testable, and trustworthy agentic workflows. Here we understand why AI alone isn't enough, because isolated AI means unpredictable, unscalable. Usually we have some lack of auditability, explainability, and some control under our workflows. And so all these possibilities gives us with Camunda, with this agentic orchestration. And agentic orchestration is about blending deterministic rules with dynamic agent behavior. Agents don't just quest at outcomes in a black box. Instead, they are embedded into our BPMN and monitored like another actor in our systems.
Yeah. Fabian, what is your opinion?
Yeah, I'm from the more enterprise branch as well. So I did not get in touch besides the hackathon on the last CamundaCon. So I did not get really in touch in it because of the same things that Thomas already said. So it's all about full control and having this audit logging and stuff like this. So we look at it and we think where we can implement it, but we still hold back and we do not go for it because of all this stuff around. This is not 100% clear.
So I've had the opposite experience. Like, we are introducing agentic orchestration into all of our customers where it makes sense. And I think we're doing it for a couple of reasons. One, our customers are eager to kind of see what's actually beneath the talking points, right? How does this actually work, right? So we've been using like ad hoc processes with 8.7 that are dynamically determined either by like a decision table or by an AI agent that determines what the next task will be. Especially like in the fintech space, like we have scenarios where we have to do like background checks, right? And when you do the background check, you have like income verification and employment verification and criminal and so on and so forth. And different customers will want that executed like our customers provide services to other businesses, and their customers sometimes will want those executed in a different order, right? Because for them, it's more expensive to do a criminal background check than it is to do, a financial check or whatever the case may be. So we're using agentic orchestration as a pre-step to the ad hoc process that determines what the following steps should be. And then the agent is being informed by, what was happening in the past. And also, sometimes even actually directly talking to a decision table and coming back and saying, this is the next thing to do. This is the next thing to do. This is the next thing to do. What I find is that it solves for me what I call the good bridge problem. The good bridge problem is if you are an engineer, you build a bridge and there's like, hey, it's supposed to bear 10,000 pounds. Immediately, if it's a good bridge and people like it, they're going to say, can we put 20,000 on it, 50,000 on it, right? We want to do a lot of commerce on this bridge. And I think what happens with agentic orchestration is that you have a way out. You have a way to elegantly embrace that complexity of divergent paths in a way that is not as readily available with deterministic flow, because you've got to have complicated gateways and events and blah, 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 blah. Now you've been very patient. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Oh, no, don't worry. I was just waiting for you to finish up, but I was very happy to listen to you. You made a really good point there that actually I've seen myself. I'm interested in what folks think this as well. One of the really nice benefits, and it's a thing that I've always wanted to see in BPMN in general, but now it's more possible than ever, is something you very, very quickly mentioned there, which is understanding how previous iterations ran. right? So for instance, we have this, I was also building a really similar POC recently for a financial institution who would, if a customer wanted to do anything with like move money from accounts, open a new
Yeah.
account, instead of starting from the very start where you would do all of these checks, you
Yeah.
actually start first by finding out what are the what's everything we have dealt with this customer about. But not only that, how long did things take? What was actually the result of the last background check?
Yeah.
And you can get all that information. And some cases the background check happened 6 months ago, so therefore it's not valid anymore. So I'll have to run a new one. But it means that you actually get a far more efficient execution based on the sort of long-term memory of instances run before, which wasn't impossible before, but it was much harder to model before because the consequences of the history needed to then be added to the model, which would have made the model huge.
Yeah.
So it's actually one of the really nice benefits is like the RAG sort of agentic pattern where you use this long-term memory to make sure that processes always perform better because they are working off history of what happened before it. Really, really handy, and it also is I would say there's risks to it because unless you check what it's doing, it could end up just reinforcing bad behavior constantly. So, like, we've been experimenting a lot with that, which has been really fun. Just watching the dumb stuff that AI agents actually do if you don't properly maintain them is both hilarious and also worrying. But I think it's the potential is definitely there, provided you add safeguards properly. But it's a
Yeah.
good use case.
Niall, I want to bring up a question that I had actually shot to you directly, and I think it's an important and a hard question, which is, I have some great friends who are customers of mine, and occasionally they'll pull me aside and they'll say, "Hey, Max, once you get past the marketing where, how do I actually know, as an engineer, one engineer to another, how do I actually know I can trust the AI system to be making the right decision, the decision that I would want made? Aren't I better off creating a deterministic system that's more, maybe slower, but is more predictable? Because what happens if someone comes along and wants to borrow $5 million on like, a 200 credit rating and the system hallucinates and approves that, right? So the question they were asking was specifically, show me through either data or a logical argument why I should trust this system to be able to solve complicated problems that I had not anticipated in production. How do I know that I can trust this system? And this is a guy who has a master's in AI. Like he's not what is that term? He's not a Luddite. He's not phobic of the technology. He he wants to know. He wants to believe, right? He's like the X-Files. He wants to believe, but he needs data. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I'm interested. I want to see a raise, just of the folks here, just to quickly before I go into my argument. I want to just see a quick raise of hands of people who actually also like on a personal level believe this is a big problem. Do folks here actually think this is an issue that they tell us? Come along, yeah, definitely, yeah. So. So we got most people honestly have some trust issues with AI for very good reason, right? And it's definitely one of the bigger topics. Let me explain. Yeah, say again, Fabian.
I'm sorry. Have you guys heard about the AI vending machine that went crazy?
No.
No,
Oh,
what happened?
No, there was a story. I think it was from Anthropic or somewhere else. They had one in the office. I'm not sure if it's 100% correct. This is what it's in my head, what I remember from it. And at first it was correct. It could order some new stuff, so it could add some new products, etc. on requests. It was working okay, but then it made some crazy prices like salt. I don't know what it was. I think it was in Germany it's Wolfram, like a metal. And it sold it for very cheap, even though it's very expensive and very heavy. And then it got hallucinating and started thinking it was a human and started to hallucinate some conversations that never happened, and at some point it thought it was a human itself. So
This is
there
how
you could
Skynet starts.
this is there you could see from like a working system, it went crazy over time. So when I hear a story like this, I'm not sure how much truth is in that story, but what happens if you have a working system that looks great in the beginning, but then it starts to get more and more crazy.
Yeah.
I think the key thing there is, and that was going to be my point, is it's actually something that's happening to it that would happen with any human, which is if we are left alone for too long, we go crazy. So, and I think that is a legitimate thing to worry about, which is why when you're actually building agents with orchestration, like the default I build is at least two different agents in a single process minimum, because you need one agent who does the thing, right? Now, when an agent does the thing in Camunda, it has two sort of record-keeping mechanisms. The first is its basic chain of thought, which is kind of its own scratch pad of what it wants to do, along with what tools it knows are available and other stuff. And it can add to this and it can explain what it's doing. And this is completely untrustworthy. This is just because the agent itself owns this record, right? And this agent can then say whatever it likes. And the other record is the engine's own record of what's happened. This is the actual true record. So this is what the engine has executed. And this is totally independent from the agent, right? Which is why there was a really funny, I've mentioned this a couple of times now, but it's really worth remembering. There's a really funny paper by, I think it was OpenAI released it, where they had what we would call a very normal type of a pattern. The agent does the work and the judge that runs after it, right? It's a thing I always tell people this site should build the process. Now, interesting, the judge looked at the chain of thought of the previous agent and then would tell the agent, hey, I saw what you did there. That wasn't the way you should do it. Next time, do it better. And the agent at first would then take that into account. But then slowly it would then start to lie in its chain of thought because that's easier than doing the thing. The judge is unaware, right? Because the chain of thought seems absolutely fine, but it's actually not doing what it says it's doing. Which is why when you have an independent audit log, you can actually give the chain of thought and the audit log itself that actually happened, and then actually be able to properly judge both if the agent is being really not a very nice agent or if it's doing the job correctly. There are two very different questions. Can I trust what happened? This is one question. And did it do it efficiently and correctly? Which is the second question. So generally, I think the fact that Camunda has that independent like log of what actually executes rather than most of their agents relying on a combination of sort of log outputs or chain of thought records, it makes it a little more solid, assuming you implement that pattern. But I totally can understand the vending machine going crazy. That makes sense. I would go crazy if I were a vending machine. Imagine waking up and you think you're human, which is kind of exciting, and then you realize you're a vending machine. Like that is an awful realization to have in quick succession.
So 2 points, Niall, real fast. First, I had that realization, which led to my first midlife crisis. So that I think that is true. I think the second thing that I think is really interesting about this is that Camunda actually has a way of exporting information from optimized to an LLM friendly format, which again I just really love because it shows sort of the forward-thinking idea, right? Like the idea that Camunda was thinking about this years ago and put it into place so that now customers who want to think about that and utilize it and have a way to go from what's actually happening to feeding their AI, which can act as an arbitrator and a judge, is, I mean, that road is easier, right? It's like putting your sneakers next to your bed, so you're just that much more likely to get up and go to the gym. I think these little things really matter. So that was my quick thing. Anyone else want to comment on that?
I would like to
also
chime
can
in.
add that
Hollis.
No,
Yeah.
but Maria, go first. Maria, go first.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So we also can see that for business, for customers, it's very important to see, for building this trust, to see data, to see some evidence why the system in this moment makes this decision. Yeah. And in this case, Camunda Optimize show us a lot of information about agents, their behavior, how often AI decisions are taken, how long they take, and where bottlenecks in our processes, right? And here also very important to make the right prompt for LLM, because uh, on this reason, I see this prompt like a small product, yeah, in our workflows, because we special roles, context, examples, constraints, and then we version these prompts like we would any config, yeah, and that what makes it scalable. I see its possibility in Camunda. It's really very great.
Yeah, yeah.
We're building a
Talis.
prompt helper actually for the final release. So it'll a prompt copilot, because we're definitely finding that some of the biggest problems with AI agents is that their system prompt has some weird loophole that the agent has found to do weird stuff. Because it's important when you're writing the prompt to remember that you're not writing a prompt to an agent who is like to help an agent do their job. You're writing it to guardrail the agent to make sure it doesn't do anything else. That's how you should be thinking about your prompt, because it will take the shortest path to just completing the task. And even if that means doing it really badly or pretending to do it, like it'll always screw that up. But one thing I have found is it does genuinely stick to its prompt very strictly. You can, depending how you phrase it, you can write a prompt that makes it very, very hard for the agent to trick you into thinking you did the job correctly. But it takes a while, and it's one of the big things that we're adding as far when 8.8 gets released. Right now, it's the prompt is a free text field, that you just type whatever you want into. And yeah, that's where most of the improvements I think could be made. I hadn't thought of the versioning though. The independent versioning of prompts though, Maria, I think is a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
Because that would mean that you'd be able to always link an instance of the process to, like you do have the prompt as a variable, that's fine. But I'd be more interested in being able to like have a set of prompts that you can call from, that you can always look back on. Here are the prompts that we have used and grown over time. Sounds like a nice idea to test improvements.
Yeah.
Talis, what were you going to say, my friend? Also,
Uh,
your hair looks great today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It took me a long time. That's why I'm late. Sorry. I have to honor my Brazilian background. I have to arrive late at places. I'm sorry. But long time no see, a lot of people here. First time Fabian and Thomas. And Fabian, don't take it personally, but it's just like you gave the perfect example, like the prime example of why do they hallucinate? Like you mentioned a story that you remember, but you remember vaguely, and then like that's how it happened. And then next time I do something, I should do equally or like should avoid doing the same, like having the same output. And that's exactly how these guys work. Like they remember things vaguely, and then they make decisions based on that. If they don't have like a specific like RAG system in place, they remember things vaguely, and it's like, I should do it again. I should start like giving prices randomly, crazy, because that's what happened last time. But like a lot of times they don't like, not a lot of time, most of the times they don't know the story for real. They remember vaguely things and then they make decisions based on that. That's why we need like RAG or like some very specific, like a deterministic layer afterwards to avoid that. Because that's all these guys do. Like they hallucinate, and sometimes hallucination like aligns with reality because they remember things vaguely. They're really good at remembering a lot of things, but everything they do is vaguely. And we think it's great, but it's not. It's just not.
I find like DMN tables are really good to solve that particular kind of problem. So you can add a DMN table as a tool. Like I use one for checking whether a fraud checking table where you add in some details and you get a clear fraud score. And that's really important, because if the AI agent, just like Tala said, is in charge of judging every single input as fraudulent or not, and it's going on half remembered stuff, you mean that no, people aren't being treated fairly. Because in some cases, the AI agent might be thinking, yeah, that guy has an income of 200 euro a year and bought a yacht. That seems like perfect sense, right? And like you could so DMN tables embedded as tooling for agents can really solve, as well as RAG, can really solve those. I would say the likelihood of having unfair treatment to someone based on how the agent feels at a certain time. That's a fair thing to remember when you're building those things as well.
Thomas, I have two questions for you, Thomas. First question is, what kind of headphones are those? Because they look awesome and I want a pair. And the second is, what is your opinion on dealing with the inevitable hallucinogenic effects that your AI agents will undergo? And now, by the way, I love what you said about you can't leave them alone. Anyone will go crazy. A person will go crazy. That's so perfectly put. I'm totally going to steal that. So, yeah, Thomas, did you want to weigh in on that?
So the headphones, it's HD 450.
HD 450?
Yes.
Okay, I like them.
How is the sound quality on your side? I'm not sure about that.
Amazing. Really good.
It's amazing for rock music. If you love rock music, it's the best thing ever.
Nice.
It's not the primary tool for video conferences. I use it as a backup.
No, it looks great. It sounds great too. What are your thoughts on systematically dealing with the tendency for for your AI agents to just hallucinate if they're not left alone? Like, what if outside of necessarily Camunda, I'm sure that in your career as a computer scientist, you've run into this sort of thing. How have you dealt with it in the past?
Well, my first contact with AI was some years ago when I was working on my master's thesis, and back then that wasn't called AI, that was called machine learning and etc. And I also had those issues already back then, and somehow I convinced myself that it's a lack of training. It's like, like with a newcomer to the team, right? If the person shows goodwill but still does not deliver the right results, you as a good leader say, oh, maybe he doesn't get the right information in the right time. Maybe something is, the vision is not clear, etc., etc. So I was always in the past looking for what I can do as a human in order so that the machine understands better and so that the machine delivers better results.
Yeah.
That was my approach back then, and I would probably still do the same. So if I see that the agent is hallucinating too much, I would probably look at if it was trained properly, if it got the right data.
Yeah.
And I think the point with DMN table afterwards, I didn't really think of that, but yes. Is there maybe a security mechanism that can make sure that if things go really wrong, we have a emergency brake there or something like that?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
No, for me, I'm just kind of curious if among us there are people who have, agent on production right now, or who are working, right?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And what's your experience then? Because
so we run into a really interesting problem, which is that typically when you build these systems, especially in Camunda, especially for what we normally do, which is sort of a POC perspective, when you are trying to train your agents, what you do is you feed it history, and you usually use that as part of the API call, right? So you end up calling your agent, whether it's ChatGPT or whatever the case may be. You said, here's your prompt, here's your history, go make a decision, right? But what we're finding is that that becomes unwieldy as you start building more and more and more information, right? You just the physical size of the history, right? And the network traffic it takes to go to it and the amount of time it has to do, right? So what we started doing was we actually started setting up essentially an exporter that listens to the Elastic in Camunda and exports the data to a vector DB that's co-located with the LLM. And that way you're feeding it a steady diet of current information. So systematically speaking, it has immediate access to the history, right? So that's kind of happening asynchronously and systematically so that it can go to the vector DB and pull the information in. And then most recently, what we started doing is we started interjecting essentially a judge or what we call it a vizier or advisor, which is there is a systematic way that we go and we try to extract the key heuristics of why the system is deciding to do what it's doing. So we work with a small company called Practical that does a really cool thing. They essentially will look at your data and say, these seem to be your keys, heuristics. This is why you tend to approve loans. You're looking at credit line and you're looking at, a history and income and location, whatever the case may be. They surface that goes to the executives come back and give it the right weighing. And then we inject that into the vector DB. So that way there's a cleansing of the data, reducing the signal, reducing the noise, increasing the signal as we're, essentially feeding the vector DB, which is feeding history information to the LLM in real time so that it can start doing things the right way, right? Because that's not an immediate problem you have to solve. You don't have to solve that problem for like 6 months, right? Because your history doesn't get that big. But after you've gone into production for a while, this is a big practical problem. You've got to solve the fact that your amount of storage that you're going to have in the system, just the memory, is big. And it's got a lot of noise, and you've got to find a way to discriminate between noise and signal. That's my thing. Anyone want to weigh in on that?
I can add that for building this trust, we need perhaps more time because remember how we met first time ChatGPT, right? So we was very carefully with ChatGPT and we check every answer. It's right or no? It's right or no? I think it's the same way will be with agents in our workflows, right?
Yeah.
At the beginning, it was without trust. We need more time for checking it, etc., etc. But I think during the time, we see that the value of these great possibilities in our workflows, and we will use agents everywhere. Yeah.
Kalas. I'm going to pronounce your name differently every time I call you.
Okay, I'm okay. I lived in Japan for 3 years. I'm okay with people not
Me
pronouncing
too.
my
Where
name.
I lived there for 1 year. Where did you live?
Osaka.
Okay, I was in Aizu.
Anyway, like they can pronounce L or words ending in S. So like it was like I'm okay. Like for 3 years, my name was not my name. No problem there. But I wanted to like bring a point, like raise a question if like someone is doing it or try doing it, because we're talking about these agentic workflows, like this agentic chaining of things. And then of course like comes to mind like LangChain, for example. You can do LangChain, it's very verbose, and oh no, but you can do LangGraph. And then it's like at the moment I look at a graph like LangGraph, and I was like, this is poor. I could do BPMN. Like this is like it's much better if I could do BPMN right there. Like, or then like I don't want to mention other engines. Right? It's no need for that. But it's like BPMN. Like you could do that. But the point is like a lot of times we think of like, hey, here I'm gonna call an agent or like a chain of agents. I'm gonna make a REST call to my own server which has LangChain on it, and LangChain is going to orchestrate these things like. There's a lot of work. I have an engine, BPMN engine in my hand.
Yeah.
So like, is it possible someone is doing like trying to think of like instead of having a service desk or like a connector that just calls like an external service to do it, that would be like a kind of like a sub-process on its own. And that sub-process is in BPMN exactly that, like all these chaining of different actions, all this reasoning that's happening within an agent or within agents to complete like a single task.
Yeah.
So like everything remains BPMN, because every time I look at like LangGraph or something, I was like this is poor. I could do something better with BPMN, like something more solid,
Yeah.
and which I can audit much better than looking at the logs from LangChain. Like this is like so much better. Like just keep BPMN, keep it real, keep it BPMN.
Yeah.
There are two things. There are two things there that actually stand out from the POCs I've been building. And the first is you mentioned like about making a REST call to some external LLM that does something and then returns back to you with the result, right?
Yeah.
So the question then becomes, how scalable is that entity, right? And that entity is exactly as scalable as your thread will stay open for. Right, that is how scalable it is, right? So you can make a call, you can give it 1,000 tools, and if it decides to run one too many, it'll time out and fail. So there's the thing. So they're limited, they're already limited by scale purely by the fact that they're synchronous, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is throughout history of building software, the fundamental thing that makes something more scalable is adding transparency to what's going on. If you think about like punch card programming from the 70s which was completely oblique, you had absolutely no idea what would possibly run in that, to object-oriented programming in Java, right? Just being able to create a single line that gave you the transparency of what actually is executing under the hood meant you could build more complex things and make it more visible and more open. So going forward, there are two things that BPMN brings, especially with Camunda's BPMN, because it's not transactional. The first is being able to hold state for as long as you need to. So we can run agents for a week or a month or however long it takes. And when I say run agents, I don't mean have an agent like just constantly eating your money for a month. What I mean is like every time you're in this big construction that every time it needs to do something else, it'll ask an agent for a decision. That might happen once a day. It might happen twice or 3 times an hour. It all depends on how it's going through it. And we can add as many tools to that toolbox as possible. And because it's asynchronous, it can run forever. Now there's a problem, because if it wasn't visible, you could add all those tools, it would be asynchronous, but you would still have the problem of sending a request to a black box and then having no idea what's going on unless you're reading logs, right?
Yeah.
So the benefit of BPMN in general for agentic orchestration is scaling agents both on a technical level, but also on a practical level. So yeah, I think it's a big difference between generic agents and agent builders and enterprise agents that are actually intended to do more than one thing. And you mentioned call activities because and calling sub processes and sub agents, that's like their number one thing people first think of. Because in fairness, I'm dealing most with our existing customers, so they already have perfectly functional processes that are working great. And they think, oh, this is super. We no longer need to get this request that goes into some human that then has to start manually all these different processes we have built. We have an agent that doesn't actually trigger anything except other processes.
Yeah.
And the agent's goal is just two things: trigger the right process depending on the context, and then keep the context between process execution. So if one process finished, the agent now has the context of the result for that, and then can decide on what the next process may run and pass the context into it. It's really cool. And it's just what somebody else would have done. It's exactly the thing I described in the beginning, the kind of process that is hard to model, because it requires you to sort of understand, given the current context, what's the next thing I should do. And that's often given to a human. So yeah, I'm big, obviously I'm a bit of a shill really, because I'm a big fan of BPMN from the very beginning, but I also I totally am bought into BPMN as like miles ahead other ways of building agents in particular for those two scalability reasons, I think, and visibility and asynchronous execution are the two main ones.
Yeah, I'll say it the way I think about it. I'm old enough to remember when object-oriented programming was first, brought in, and I started programming in Java when it was still called Oak, and it like blew my mind. And the way that I think about this is that to me, using BPMN to manage orchestration of AI agents is as object-oriented programming is to like something like, Modula 2 or Pascal or whatever the case may be, that more procedural sort of approach. I feel like it's just a better paradigm. Like you're just more likely to succeed doing this than doing that. And I'm also a bit of a bigot. All we ever do is Camunda, right? But there's a reason for that. It's just a better way to do it. If there were another company that was better, my loyalty would switch immediately because my dedication is to excellence. But it's been 10 years. No one's come along.
And just to add on like to the BPMN fanboy club, and that's the beauty of BPMN because when BPMN was like imagined, like the notation, it evolved from 1 to 2,
Yeah.
but it's like it wasn't thought as like, hey, this is going to be great for orchestrating agents. It was not, but it's just like it's so solid. It's so like it's just like good because it's so solid. So like it doesn't matter. Like you throw new challenge at it and it still excels because it's like that's it. It's so solid. It's foundational. So it's like it's great that it works really well because that's it. It's good at that.
Yeah.
So we have 8 minutes left. I'm going to ask one person to ask Niall a question that they want to ask him. And then Niall, I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit in the last couple of minutes about what's coming down the road that people should be excited about from Camunda. So one person, feel free.
Anyone have any important questions?
Oh,
Yes, something on a more private note. So Niall, looking at what you can do nowadays with Camunda 8.8 and agentic orchestration, is there something where you would have thought, oh, I was actually hoping that I could do more than just this. So is there some, like some blind spot, maybe not covered in this release, maybe which will be covered in some of the later releases, or anything like that, or like some part of what you would need?
There is actually.
Can you be more specific?
Yeah, I'd love to. That's a great question, by the way. I love that. It's like, why is your software release that's going to happen in October not as good as it should be? Which is marketing is going to absolutely love me answering this question. So I'm
not saying it's not as good as it's supposed to be.
I know, yeah.
By the way, that's gonna be the soundbite for this.
Yeah,
when I cut up this video, that's the one I'm gonna lead with.
Yeah, I think it goes back to actually Max's comment about data. I think we are behind on data management in general. I think we're pretty good on a lot of the agentic things, but never before has data and the control of it been so important. Never before have we would tell you, for instance, hey, don't put personal data in your process variables, job done, right? But now we have agentic orchestration. Agents, if they get their hands on personal data you don't want, especially if you're using a public model, I mean, you could be violating all sorts of GDPR problems, right? Data is now actually becoming a far more interesting question for folks using Camunda. Right now, we have a few kind of manual ways to solve it. There's nothing good enough, in my opinion, yet to solve the problems in a really simple way. And definitely not in a foolproof way. So I think that'll hopefully be something that I look forward to because I think we're still blocked on very, very specific processes that really rely on using sensitive data, tend to kind of say, yeah, we could do this. We understand how, but the consequences of us leaking data are to such a degree that we actually are a little, we would like way more ironclad stuff rather than having to implement it ourselves. So I see that as being a big the potential improvement that will come because we have that feedback already. So it's already in the cards of how we implement it, and we've actually done the first step towards that. We already externalized the agent's chain of thought. So that is actually not stored in a process variable if you don't want it to be. That's stored actually externally in an
Oh,
external
cool.
data source. So it'll never, so you can give the agent itself, if it's a model you trained yourself, you can give it personal data and it'll actually never be a process variable. It'll always be maintained in a third party. But that's just a start because that's one problem with data. But that just opened up a can of like all sorts of other potential stuff. So yeah, so it's a great question. I appreciate that. Maybe really have to think about like because I'm so looking forward to the release that I forgot. Yeah, there'll be another release after that, won't there? What'll be in that release? So yeah, I appreciate that.
Amazing, thank you.
No
Yeah.
problem.
Okay, so that was actually kind of both. It was both an upcoming feature thing and a question. So I think we have time for one more question. Anyone else want to put Niall on the spot? Okay, I got one. Is there any plan to bake in some sort of a trainable LLM into Camunda? Like, I'd like to just have one that's, I mean, I do this a lot with my customers. I'll tell them to run an LLM in a local container, right? And I'll use that because a lot of my customers are in fintech and they don't, they have policies against using, more commercial information. Is there any plan to put anything like that in place?
Now, Max, I love a good question, and I'd always define a good question by when I have exactly the right answer. That's how I like to define it. So I can tell you that that'll be the next release. So we're creating something called a hybrid connector for agents. That means is that right now, if you use the connector in Camunda to connect to an agent, there's a drop down with some predefined things like connecting to Bedrock to thingy. But actually, we've got a hybrid version of that where you can take that code that executes the LLM stuff, and you run that locally, and then you can actually override what LLM it connects to locally. So then
brilliant.
actually you're running the process in the cloud or wherever you want, in the usual place you run it, but instead of connecting to the regular place where the connectors are, you're actually connecting to a local connector that you are hosting that subsequently connects to the LLM that you wanted to connect to, which could be anything you want. Now, I know I said that it'll be the next release, and I'm just remembering now, I did see a demo of it by the dev team like about 3 weeks ago. So that does not mean it'll be in the release. It means
But it's coming. Okay,
it's
very,
coming,
very
and I've
cool.
seen it working. So whether it'll be in the next release, I don't want to make any promises. I'm constantly getting in trouble for saying stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely on the horizon. Because it's a connector, it doesn't necessarily have to come with the 8.8 release in October. It could potentially come independently a month later or whatever. But it's on the way. It basically works really well, and it's to solve exactly the problem that you just mentioned, because lots of folks are like, we've spent a whole bunch of time training our own internal LLM. We're not really that interested in then having to buy a subscription to a public one. Also, we don't trust the public one. So yeah, there's all of those issues. But yeah, no, that should be implementable. I think it's a very good request, and I think it's something I'm very happy to say we will have.
Very, very cool. Okay, final question. Who's going to ComundaCon this year in New York?
That's a great question. I hope everybody.
All right. Well, all right, for those of you.
Unfortunately, I can't be.
Oh, that's too bad, Maria. You were such a delight to talk to last time.
I'm like just nearby, but this year I don't think I'll be able to go. But yeah, just like
come
so
on.
close. I can go by car, but yeah, maybe I don't know yet. Like a lot
Come
of things
on, we're
happening.
throwing a party for the champions. Come and hang out.
I'll send you the email from my PhD supervisor. Okay, we discussed that in trio.
All right, sounds good. Guys, thank you everyone for doing this to our still unnamed baby podcast. We're going to do this again in 30 days. Niall, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
You made this so much fun, provided a lot of insight, and everyone else, I mean, clearly super expert in the space. This is a pleasure. it really is, it's really a pleasure to be a part of this company and working together with this group. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Thank
folks.
you.
Bye.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
see you
Bye-bye.
all. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.